team will win.
Please. I have a cat!
The film opens in Bighorn Ridge, Montana. A cantankerous elderly woman named Ellen Cole stops at a pharmacy to refill her prescription, then picks up 2 boxes of beer at a nearby convenience store. Not far away, the local sheriff, Winston, catches a young woman named Abigail Cochran mid-theft. She had slipped several chocolate bars and a few packs of beef jerky out of the same store without paying. Her father recently drank himself to death, leaving her completely alone in the world, and Abigail has every intention of leaving town behind for good. With no money and no destination, the stolen food was meant to be road supplies. Rather than slapping her with an arrest, Winston takes pity on her, lets her off with a warning, and tells his deputy, Henry Darr, to drive her out to the city limits. Henry tries to make conversation on the way, but Abigail shuts it down. He drops her near a gas station and leaves. Inside, 2 men named Kyle and Dwayne spot Abigail trying to thumb a ride. They walk over and push her to let them take her somewhere, and when she turns them down, they just keep at it, making the situation increasingly uncomfortable. Ellen happens to be watching. She steps in and offers Abigail a ride herself. Abigail takes it, but Kyle and Dwayne try to block them from leaving, a mistake they pay for immediately, as Ellen takes both men down with startling ease. Abigail can barely believe what she just witnessed from someone who looks like a grandmother, and thanks her as they drive off. On the road, Ellen learns that Abigail is trying to reach Mexico. Abigail mentions she has always wanted to see Machu Picchu, and Ellen gently points out that Machu Picchu is in Peru, not Mexico. Rather than dropping Abigail at the highway, Ellen brings her back to her ranch, which sits beside an active construction site. She insists that Abigail should at least leave on a full stomach after a proper night's sleep. Abigail resists at first, but eventually agrees. Over dinner that night, the 2 women fall into a surprisingly warm conversation. Ellen reveals that Abigail's father used to come around and help with things after Ellen's husband died. Abigail explains that her father's drinking started when Duke's construction crews arrived to build the dam. He loved the creek that ran nearby and was devastated when the construction tore it apart. He eventually lost himself in grief, wandered to the dam, and drowned. Abigail is done with the town entirely and wants to see the world. Ellen listens carefully and tells her that traveling opens the mind in ways nothing else can, but having a home to return to matters just as much. A place to belong is something worth holding on to. To ease the weight of the moment, Ellen jokes that the 2 of them are both orphans now. They laugh together, and the sadness between them lifts just a little. The following day, a powerful land developer named Richard Duke rolls up to Ellen's ranch in his limousine, accompanied by his right-hand man, Mitch Clay. Duke gets right to business, pressuring Ellen to sell. He tells her the land is the ideal location for his new resort project, throws out a large sum of money, offers her the pick of any property in Duke's estates, and tops it off with a lifetime VIP membership. Ellen turns all of it down without blinking. Duke pushes harder, but Ellen makes herself perfectly clear. As long as she is still breathing, her ranch is not on the market at any price. Duke storms back to the limo, and once the door closes, he orders Mitch to get Ellen off that property by whatever means necessary. That night, Ellen quietly fills Abigail's backpack with supplies for the road and tucks a hunting knife in for protection. She tells Abigail to be smart and keep herself safe. Abigail is genuinely moved. But later that same night, Kyle and Dwayne, both on Duke's payroll, break into the house. Their plan is to hurt Ellen and make it look like an accident. Dwayne gets started tampering with the stairs, but Ellen hears something and wakes up. She catches him in the act, attacks him, and despite her age, beats him down and knocks him unconscious with her oxygen tank. Meanwhile, the commotion pulls Abigail out of bed, and she runs straight into Kyle. He chases her through the house, and during the struggle, Abigail stumbles onto a gun inside a cabinet and shoots him in the shoulder. Kyle bolts, terrified and bleeding, and Abigail stands there shaking at what just happened. Ellen comes to her calmly, tells her not to say a word, and says she will take the blame herself. Kyle goes straight to Mitch to report the disaster. Mitch makes no effort to hide his contempt for the fact that 2 grown men could not handle 1 elderly woman. The next morning, police arrive at the ranch and arrest Dwayne, but instead of keeping the focus on the break-in, Sheriff Winston brings up Ellen's earlier fight at the gas station. Things get worse when the police turn up 12 marijuana plants in Ellen's barn. Ellen says they are strictly for personal use, but Winston points out that anything over 4 plants in Montana crosses into felony territory, possession with intent to distribute. 2 masked men broke into her home in the middle of the night, and somehow Ellen ends up in handcuffs. Deputy Henry is visibly uncomfortable carrying out the order, but he follows it. As Ellen is led away, Abigail stays behind at the ranch. Alone in the house, Abigail discovers a hidden room beneath the basement. Inside are a collection of guns, multiple passports, and old photographs of Ellen in military uniform. It becomes clear that Ellen's past goes much deeper than anyone would have guessed. Down at the police station, one of the officers notices Ellen's fierce tiger tattoo and tells her it is genuinely badass, then rolls up his sleeve to show her his own Taylor Swift tattoo by comparison. Nearby, Dwayne hurls threats at Ellen about what is going to happen to her house, and Ellen responds by mocking his broken nose. Dwayne gets bailed out while Ellen is left in a holding cell. She demands that Winston protect her property and spells out the connection between the break-in and Duke, but Winston brushes her off. She looks him in the eye and asks whether he has any real intention of protecting her. He tells her flatly that he does not. Not long after, Kyle and Dwayne load up cans of gasoline, making their next plan obvious. Back at the station, Henry grows increasingly uneasy. He brings Ellen's oxygen tank to her cell, only to find her collapsed on the floor. He rushes in to help, and Ellen turns the moment against him, She gets his gun and locks him inside the cell in her place. On the way out, she grabs another officer by the finger to stop him, and when a female officer tries to use a taser on her, Ellen takes the weapon and uses it to put both officers on the ground, before walking out the door. Ellen drives straight home. She hands Abigail the truck keys and tells her to get out before the police arrive, insisting she can manage on her own. Abigail refuses to leave. The police show up outside shortly after. Ellen steps out onto the front porch to meet them. Winston levels his gun at her, and she strips it from him and drops him to the ground in front of his entire department. Humiliated, Winston calls for heavier firepower. Henry tries to pull him back, warning that Abigail is still in the house, and this is heading somewhere nobody will be able to walk back from. Henry goes inside, unarmed, and tries to persuade Abigail to come out peacefully, promising that no one is going to harm an old woman. Abigail refuses, and instead shows him what she has found. She used to think her father was out of his mind, she tells Henry, but she is no longer sure about that. She spreads out a map and walks him through a pattern. A neighboring ranch burned to the ground, officially ruled a brush fire. Another lost its entire cattle herd to botulism, a disease that rarely shows up in the area. After that, the owner took his own life. Henry's first instinct is to write it off as coincidence, but the more Abigail lays out, the harder that becomes to hold on to. Then Abigail mentions something she had always believed, that Henry was the officer who found her father's body at the dam. Henry corrects her. He was the first officer on the scene, but Duke's men were the ones who actually found the body. That single fact shifts everything. The two of them arrive at the same conclusion at the same moment. Duke's men may have killed her father. Shortly after, Mitch shows up with a crew of armed men. Winston asks for a few more minutes to bring Abigail out safely. Mitch gives him 3. Winston radios Henry and orders him to get Abigail outside now. Henry refuses and demands to know why Duke's men are standing on police grounds. Winston, looking like a man who has already made his choice, gives Mitch the signal to move in. Henry wants to believe there is still an explanation, that Winston might still be a decent person somewhere underneath all of this. Abigail tells him plainly that Winston has thrown all of them away and left them to die. Without any warning, Ellen knocks Henry unconscious. She has decided he is a liability she cannot afford. Since leaving him upstairs is not an option, she and Abigail drag him down into the hidden room beneath the basement and secure him there. Then Ellen locks both of them inside for their own safety and goes to meet what is coming. Outside, more of Mitch's people arrive. These are not street-level thugs. They are trained mercenaries. As they move into position, Ellen moves through the house setting booby traps. The police run a background check in the meantime and come up nearly empty at first. Only a record of Ellen arriving in Bighorn Ridge in 1999, and almost nothing before that. But after the FBI runs her tiger tattoo, the picture changes completely. Ellen is Russian. She was once a KGB operative known by the codename Sword and Shield. This woman was not just trained to fight, she was trained to kill for a living. Around the back of the house, Dwayne spots a set of practice targets. Every single bullet has hit dead center. He looks at those targets and begins to panic. Before the mercenaries can ram a car through the front of the house, Ellen shoots out the tire and stops them cold. The men coming around the back start tripping Ellen's booby traps one by one. Dwayne breaks and runs, abandoning everyone else. Mitch orders his men to open fire on the house, forcing Ellen into cover. Kyle kicks open the front door and gets launched across the lawn by another trap. The remaining men push inside, but Ellen is already moving through the darkness. She takes them apart one by one with a single bullet each, sometimes turning their own weapons against them. Down in the hidden room, Abigail is working to force the door open. A mercenary hears the noise and starts trying to get through from the other side. Ellen is still clearing the house with terrifying efficiency. Abigail frees Henry from his restraints just as the mercenary breaks through and opens fire. Henry fights back but gets overwhelmed, and Abigail caves the attacker in with a baseball bat. Elsewhere in the house, Ellen's body is starting to fail her after everything she has pushed through. She reaches for her oxygen tank, but Mitch spots her and fires. She takes a hit. She returns fire, but Mitch pulls a dead body up in front of him for cover until her gun runs dry. He compliments her, tells her she must have been an absolute machine back when she was in her prime. Then he throws her across the room and prepares to execute her. Before he pulls the trigger, he tells her to make a final request. Ellen, completely composed, tells him to aim for the head. Mitch turns around and finds Henry standing there with a gun pointed straight at him. The three of them tie Mitch up and start asking questions. They want to know why Duke is in such a rush to have Ellen removed when the authorities are already set to seize her property within the year anyway. Mitch gives up the answer. Duke is buried in debt to dangerous people. If the resort is not completed by next summer, he is done. Ellen has to go now. There is no time to wait. Ellen's condition is deteriorating and she needs her medication. While Abigail is trying to help her, a wine opener gets knocked off the table. Mitch quietly palms it and hides it out of sight. While Abigail tends to Ellen in the next room, Mitch goes to work on Henry, reminding him that Winston sent him in here to die. Henry's temper gets the better of him, and he moves in too close. Mitch uses the hidden tool to overpower him, and by the time Abigail and Ellen rush back, Mitch has already lit the house on fire and dragged Henry outside as a hostage. Ellen opens fire in fury, but Mitch gets clear. His men surround the building and keep shooting to make sure no one can escape. With the fire spreading through the house, Ellen, Abigail, and Henry retreat to the hidden room beneath the basement, grab what they need, and disappear through a concealed tunnel. Outside, Mitch and his crew watch the house burn, certain they have finished the job. The three of them are already gone. Ellen turns and looks back at the flames consuming the place she called home, and the grief on her face is real. By morning, Mitch's people are combing through the wreckage for bodies they are not going to find. Ellen has already led Abigail and Henry to a truck she kept hidden in the forest. On the drive away, she tells them something she has never told anyone. She never had a real home growing up. The KGB found her on the streets as a little girl and turned her into a weapon. Then she met her husband, and the two of them built something real together. A life. A home. That home is gone now, and the loss is not something she can simply absorb. They need evidence to bring Duke down. Abigail remembers that her father might have put something together before he died. They go to his trailer and search through everything he left behind, and they find it. Documentation tying Duke's resort project directly to the ranches that were destroyed and the people who lost everything. Duke, meanwhile, is fielding a call from the Russian creditors he owes money to. They want him to sign documents in person. In the forest, Abigail finally cracks under the weight of what she now knows. She spent years being embarrassed by her father, resenting him, keeping her distance, treating him the same way the rest of the town did. But he was right about everything. Duke was behind all of it. He was not losing his mind. He was telling the truth. Now both Abigail and Ellen want Duke to face consequences for what he did. Henry goes to find Sheriff Winston and informs him that the state police are on their way to place him under arrest. That night, Duke gets word that Ellen is still alive. A moment later, his lights go out. His guards start dying one by one outside the estate. Ellen moves through the property like a shadow, striking without a sound and with complete precision. Dwayne shoves Duke into a closet, presses a gun into his hands, and stands guard outside, frightened, but holding his ground. Across town, Abigail is wiring explosives to the dam. Kyle finds her there, and he tells her outright that he was the one who killed her father. He goes at her, beating her down and taunting her with every blow. Abigail reaches for the hunting knife Ellen gave her and drives it into his stomach, leaving him where he falls. Back at Duke's estate, every guard is dead. Something moves toward the closet, and Duke fires blindly through the door, emptying his gun in a panic. The door swings open, and Ellen steps in with her weapon raised. Duke assumes she is there to kill him. Ellen tells him she is not there for him at all. She is there for Mitch. When Mitch walks in, Ellen explains to him plainly that what he did was personal. He took her home from her. She shoots him in the hand and disarms him. Mitch dares her to fight him the way a man would. She accepts. Mitch gets the upper hand first, but Ellen gouges his eye. He goes for a knife. She takes it from him, and she uses it to finish him. Ellen brings Duke out into the forest. She signals Abigail, and Abigail detonates the charges, bringing the dam down. Duke screams curses at Ellen, and then one of the Russian creditors steps out of the trees to collect his signed documents. The man takes one look at Ellen and recognizes her immediately, treating her with obvious respect. Ellen speaks to him in Russian, while Duke watches with a smile, assuming the man is there to deal with her. Then the reality of his situation becomes clear. Ellen has handed him over to the people he owes, knowing full well what that means for him. Sometime later, Abigail is reading a newspaper that reports Duke has been missing since the night of the massacre at his estate. Henry, now wearing the sheriff's badge himself, stops by to drop off Ellen's prescriptions. He and Abigail share a warm goodbye before she heads out. Then Ellen and Abigail load up Abigail's father's trailer and finally point themselves toward the world. Their destination is Machu Picchu, and this time they both know exactly where it is. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy about hitting the like button, and if you disliked it, go ahead and hit the dislike button twice just to be certain. Better yet, watch the full movie. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe for more videos like this one.